Hello, my name is Adriana Zelaya, and I'm going to be doing my presentation on child marriage. Child marriage is defined as formal marriage or informal union where one or both of the parties are under 18 years of age. In part one, we are to talk about demographics of health issues affecting women. So this is kind of where we're going to describe the health issue and how it affects women. 12 million girls are married before the age of 18, and this happens every year. 1 in 5 girls in the world are said to be married before 18. Over 650 million women alive today were married as children, so again, that's under the age of 18. And there is not any significant research referring to boys in child marriage. The focus is mainly on girls because it is more prevalent in girls. But over the past few years, there have been initiatives to also look at the boys that are being married as children. Being married as a child, it is a violation of human rights when it is against your will. And factors that play into why children are being married are poverty, protection, family honor, social norms, and even religious laws. The two countries that I'm going to be talking about in my presentation are India and Nigeria. India has the overall highest absolute number of child marriages. In all time, throughout all the countries, they have the absolute most, and it's at over 15.5 million children. And Nigeria has 44% of the girls married by 18. Their child marriage burden at 18 is over 3.5 million girls, and their child marriage burden at 15 is right under 1.3 million girls. So these are the two countries that I kind of wanted to focus on because they have a lot of child marriages and they have very high prevalence of it, and it is mainly based off of religious and societal factors. And I'd kind of like to talk about that deeper in my presentation. The cultural similarities and differences among women in part 3. As far as the governments and the global organizations that are kind of helping these health issues, a main one is Girls Not Brides and their national partnership. So they have a global partnership of more than 1,000 civil society organizations from over 95 countries. So India and Nigeria actually both have a global partnership with Girls Not Brides, and these programs try to provide safe havens for girls when they do become of age to kind of be taken into child marriages, and girls who are going against their culture and do not want to be married at such a young age. A lot of countries also have a national strategy or a plan. Some of their plans are completely developed and some of their plans are only kind of in the works. So it ranges based on the countries, and I'll get more in depth about India and Nigeria's specific national plans and their Girls Not Brides initiatives when it comes to my presentation. In part 4, we're going to talk about the ethical considerations and actions. Now, this is kind of where I'm going to talk about what factors are contributing to this health issue of child marriage. And a big one is gender inequality. We also have tradition. It is kind of part of the family to get married at 14 or 15 years old. There's even been accounts of girls married at 11 and 12, and that's just part of the tradition. And girls don't really want to go against that because it's a family thing. It's been going on for hundreds of years. Poverty is also a really big factor because some women marry into families because they have very little and they want to be taken care of by a man, and that kind of goes into the gender inequality because they don't live in a community where they have a chance to actually be able to make their own money and be the breadwinners in their families. So they fall into poverty, and the only way out of that is through marriage, and this usually happens very early in life. Insecurity is something else that I saw. Insecurity I've read mostly about in Asia, and this happens when the mothers and the fathers don't necessarily believe that their children will be able to marry high up officials or high up people, so they marry them at a young age while they're still virgins and they're still pure and young. That's kind of from insecurity from parents. It can also be insecurity from the children themselves to just get married right away, so they don't feel unwanted later on down the line. Child marriage, it is against human rights, and it prevents women to be educated and for them to have their optimal help. Um, it doesn't let them bond with others, especially people their own age. It's hard to mature when you go into a marriage when you're under the age of 18, and it kind of takes away a lot of self-choice and the ability to make decisions. In an article that I found, Nawal said there's also increased risk for sexually transmitted diseases, cervical cancer, malaria, death during childbirth, and obstetric fistulas. This is what happens when children have children. I know that a lot of us had parents and stuff that were married or had us by the age of 20, by the age of 21, even teen births, 18, 19, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that if there's a plan, but the main problem is here in these third world countries where child marriage is such a thing. It is really hard on young girls to have babies in these third world countries because of the lack of medicine that we possess, for example, here in America. In part 5, the summary and conclusion, I really want to focus on how child marriages is affecting the health, the social, the political, and the economic conditions for these young women, for these not even young women, these girls. This is really mainly driven by tradition and culture, and most countries are still a very high percent of girls who are married by the age of 18. Even 30-40% is a lot of girls in these countries where there's millions of people. And the governments are truly lacking proper reform and laws to protect these children against that. Because it is culture, because it is tradition, there's a fine line that governments walk, and most of them don't want to take the steps to kind of challenge that line and kind of challenge what's actually ethical versus what has been tradition over the last few hundred years. And that is going to be everything in my presentation. I hope everything works correctly and this looks okay so far. Thank you so much for listening and for watching, and I really look forward to being able to expand on this, get more in depth, and give a really good final presentation. Thank you. Bye-bye.